All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to get us started precisely at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So please make yourselves virtually comfortable and we will start in less than 1 minute. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's objective strategic session for attritable unmanned systems for parts delivery. We will be discussing this effort that is being led by the Naval Postgraduate Schools Consortium for Advanced Manufacturing Research and Education, otherwise known as CAMRE. As a reminder that this is a semi-open session and being recorded, so please don't share any confidential or proprietary information during this call. Only share things that you are comfortable going out to the world at large. My name is Morgan Bauer, and I am the Hub Director for FLEETWERX. I will be facilitating today's objective strategic session to help everybody on this call understand what the government's goals and requirements are for the effort, and to give you a chance to ask your questions to Chris Coran from the Naval Postgraduate Schools Consortium for Advanced Manufacturing, Research and Education. So the agenda for the day, I'm going to give you a short overview of FLEETWERX, introduce you to Chris, and then he will present his problem statement, a little bit about the requirements and the background. And we are going to do all of those relatively quickly to give you all as much time as possible to ask him any technical questions. If there is a programmatic or a schedule question, I can answer that. If it is technical or requirements based, then that will be Chris. And finally, we're going to close out looking at the timeline and the path forward for the event. So starting out, what is DefenseWorks? What is FLEETWERX? So FLEETWERX is a DefenseWorks innovation hub partnered with the Naval Postgraduate School. We are one of quite a few innovation hubs for our parent nonprofit organization, DefenseWorks. Those include SoftWorks, which is partnered with SOCOM, HSWorks with the Department of Homeland Security, Doolittle Institute in Florida, and us, FLEETWERX. So our mission is to support NPS in their mission to provide graduate level education to mid-career officers and also to conduct defense-oriented applied research. This event fits into both of those buckets. We want to help facilitate some learning by NPS students, as well as allowing Chris and his government colleagues to conduct some applied research on both advanced manufacturing and unmanned systems that will be delivering the parts that are additively manufactured. We are a neutral facilitator, so what we do is bring together cutting edge industry, academia, and other solutions to the government, allowing them to try out those best of breed solutions with far less obstacles and paperwork than a traditional FAR-based acquisition process. So this is a funded event. There will be some amount of money coming to the selectee or selectees who are chosen by NPS to participate in this process. However, I will just note that the order of magnitude for the funding is more along the lines of defraying your costs to bring your system and potentially one or two folks to help train military personnel in how to operate it. It's not in the lines of paying to prototype a whole new system and buying that system. It's more of a try it out at RIMPAC type of funding level for this. Now that I've gone through all of the administrative stuff in quite good time, if I do say so myself, I will turn things over to Chris Curran, the program manager for Camry, to introduce himself, and then he will tell you a little bit more about the technical requirements for this project. And Chris, once you're done with your intro, I'll throw the slide up and you can get into the technical part.
All right, Morgan, sounds good. You could probably throw the slide up sooner rather than later. Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Curran. As Morgan pointed out, I'm the program manager for the Consortium for Advanced Manufacturing Research and Education. I'm a retired infantry officer, so I'm already out ahead of my skis when we talk about mechanical engineering, and I'm even further out ahead of my skis when we're talking about attritable systems and unmanned systems. But the vision that I've had over the last couple of years is it really does the military no good in a future fight kind of concept if I am in manufacturing and additively manufacturing material and parts, but I have no way to get it into a contested logistics fight, or I can't get it to the warfighter that needs it at the forward edge, or I can't get it fully manufactured because a heat treat furnace is far forward or far back. So what we've done over the last couple of years is try to integrate as a consortium more things that aren't exactly additive manufacturing. We focus a lot on AI. You've seen, though, I think this Friday, Morgan, if that's not incorrect, please correct me. We have an offering tied to AI and command and control. Today, we're having an offering discussing the ability to integrate unmanned systems. Last week, I believe, last Thursday, we had a 3D printer focused offering. And so as I look at the larger opportunity to bring students from the engineering department or from the models and simulations department or from physics or other areas, I try to give them the chance to take their research to as warfighters to those warfighters that are not in the academic settings right now. So I'm not going to go over reading the slides for you, but our objective this year is to focus on, we have two major exercises. Well, we have two exercises. One is major for us, and that is Rim of the Pacific. It will run from about 7 to 31 July. That is when the actual boots on the ground time is. Obviously, that's going to be in Hawaii. There will be opportunities to work with the Joint Force and to work with Rim of the Pacific partners. So there is also opportunities to get integrated and user feedback from the warfighters, as well as meet some of the professors and the researchers doing the work in the general area. We're going to be focused on a potential conflict kind of opportunity on a contested environment. So we're going to have littoral systems. We'll have naval ships. We'll have a shore-based. We'll have reach-back capability to CONUS. So there's opportunity at every level. So if you aren't selected, but you're in CONUS and want to integrate, we can still consider you as a viable candidate. And we can just bring you into the fold, because one of the things we also look at is if I'm producing a 68-pound copper nickel part that was meant for a large deck amphib, I've got to look at your unmanned system and see if the capacities that we're talking about fit within the unmanned system that you're presenting. So if you're a small group 1 drone, I'm obviously not going to have you sling load 68 pounds of copper nickel across the ocean. Or even across a vast amount of the ocean. We are looking at all the domains as indicated to the right, and we are talking about a very small funded opportunity to give you an opportunity to get your technology in front of government civilians who are, in most cases, researchers like professors and doctors, as well as warfighters who are, as you might indicate, could be as a joint unit we're working with from SOCOM to the Surface Navy to the Marine Corps. Just got off a call with the Army. We have Air Force involvement. And then we also have an opportunity for you to be working with warfare centers and naval industries within the defense industrial and the military industrial base. So lots of opportunities. As you can see here, we're looking for some undersea, we're looking for some surface, looking for ground and air. And if nothing else, we want to integrate you from kind of a payload perspective, as well as a command and control perspective, as we look to stand up a joint advanced manufacturing cell within a potential joint task force. We would then try to understand how we command and control the movement of all these unmanned systems. So there's a C2 piece to it. Outside of that, Morgan, what did I miss?
Well, I think, Chris, you did a great job covering that as always. I would just add on to there that in my experience working with you and the government stakeholders, you're fairly open to getting the best possible solution at the most affordable price rather than something where it's, if you have a UUV that can only take 25 pounds of payload and you see this slide and you say, well, I'm not going to bother to submit because I don't meet the minimum requirements, even though my tech is great. I would say, please still submit. These are the solutions of interest, not minimum requirements, shall we say.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So if you were a 25-pound aerial asset, submit. You may or may not be selected. You could be selected unfunded, and it gives you the scalability to be involved. Plus, it gets you, most of you probably already are in the ecosystem. We do run the school, not Chris Curran. We do run the GIFXs. Morgan plays a lot of role in that. So the joint interagency field exchanges 4 times a year. So, you get into the team, potential team rosters for GIFXs and other stuff. So please, yes, submit. Don't expect me to fund your project to go from TRL level 1 to 8. That's not the kind of money we're talking. We're talking about, smaller capabilities. But yes, that's it, Morgan. Thank you.
Yep. And just to add on one more thing to that piece is we are also continuously seeking additional funding. So one of those things where, there's not a ton of money in now, but if you're thinking and on the fence about submitting, please submit anyway. We may not be able to select as many capabilities as we want at the moment, but there is potential that things could get plussed up at a later date. And we'd like to have those white papers in hand to be able to show to the government, hey, here's folks who have already submitted. Why don't you take a look at that? So with that, I will open the floor if anybody has any questions. As I said in the chat, please either raise your hand or type your question into the chat and I will read it out loud. To reiterate, programmatic, schedule, those kind of things I can answer. Technical stuff, I will defer to Chris. All right,
Yeah, I see
2 questions.
I'll answer Brad's real quick. Morgan, yeah, the other exercise that we're discussing is Valiant Shield in Okinawa, and that would be in June. I know that some folks may be playing a role, but yeah, Valiant Shield in June is the other one that we're working.
And I apologize if you're putting a question in the chat or raising your hand, please also just say what organization you're with when you do so. All right, Ivan.
Hello, Morgan. This is Ivan from Splash Industries. Good to see you again. Just a quick question regarding the submission logistics. We have already submitted our proposal. However, we've had some updates that we'd like to include. Would you like us to resubmit it via the same link, or should we just send you an email separately?
It's a little bit easier. I think Submittable has a feature where you can hit a request edits button, and then I let you check out the paper. You can do your edits on it and then send it back in. That's usually a little bit easier. Once we start getting multiple submissions, then I don't want to take the responsibility of making sure that I get the exact right one in. So please use that check out and edit feature on there. And just send an email to info@fleetwerx.org if you have any questions about utilizing that. And we will very quickly sign off and allow you to make those edits.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Then a question from Wyatt.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Wyatt with Baker Engineering. We found out about this a little bit later in the timeline. Can you reiterate the submission timeline and any other important deadlines we should know?
Of course, and I will go over those near the end of this
Well,
call as well.
I can wait if you want.
But-
Towards the end, that's fine.
Oh no, I'm happy to address it now because as many times as I say it, people will still have questions. So
Okay, fair enough.
I just try and put it out there as many times as possible. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
I would say the 13th of February at 5 p.m. Pacific is the deadline for white paper submission. So it's a 3-page white paper. It's not overly burdensome amount of paperwork to do for that. So 3 pages in by the end of the day on the 13th of February. And then we should have an announcement of selection out by the 25th of February to help get everybody spun up to be on site, hopefully early June, but probably going to be more mid to late June in Hawaii.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay,
Morgan?
then a question from, yes, Chris.
Yeah, Morgan, I'm going to jump on Josh's question, and you can just maybe preload the next one potentially. So the long story short is RIMPAC is not connected to Valiant Shield formally. RIMPAC and Trident Warrior, if you ever hear me slip up and call that, is a third fleet activity. It is not a joint activity, but one of our sponsors and the sponsor that is largely funding this is at the OUSW level, and we will be pushing what we call it's a jump in a main kind of concept. We will run a joint advanced manufacturing cell at both events. So during Valiant Shield, we will be pushing a forward JAMC to Okinawa for mid to late June. And then some of those folks will fall back or send representation to RIMPAC to run the main joint advanced manufacturing cell. So we will be connected, but it is not within the JOC. It is two different exercises. We consider at NPS, we consider the Valiant Shield a warm start for our RIMPAC is probably the way I like to describe it. Our other sponsors may think that Valiant Shield is their Super Bowl. For us at Camry, we feel our Super Bowl is going to be RIMPAC, but because you will see there a much more robust joint advanced manufacturing cell, a greater distributed network for manufacturing, therefore a greater requirement for attritable autonomous delivery systems. So Josh, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Chris. Then there was a question in the chat from Antoine at C Satellites. If you have more than one technology offering, should these be submitted separately? I would say if they are sufficiently different, yes, please submit them separately. That being said, the government review team is not very large. So I would suggest don't submit 50 different white papers for 50 different unmanned systems variations, because that's just going to extend the time that it takes to get that selection out there. So yes, if they're different technology, substantially different technology options, please submit those separately. Then there was another question from Dr. Mike Wimmer from Fierce Industries. What is the maximum ideal underwater payload for UUV? Also, do we have a size and weight constraint? I'd just jump in for the size and weight constraint because that's more of a logistical issue. I think the real constraint is just being able to get it out to Hawaii for RIMPAC. So, if it's big enough and you can drive it out there, then that's no problem. If it's small enough and you can put it in a container and we can try and get you some opportune sea lift out there, then that's no problem. Just being able to get it out there. And then Chris, if you could maybe weigh in on the payload portion.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with what we've got here is about a 30 pounder is all we're looking at. We're looking for a shore base launch, whether it's a vessel, well deck, maybe an option as well. But I would say, as Morgan indicated, and I probably should have pointed out, the opportune lift is there, but that requires an earlier delivery time because I believe opportune lift starts sometime as well in early June. So it would be a transit time and then for the entire time in Hawaii and then a transit time back. So you'd have to be comfortable with your equipment being out of your hands for a good portion on the front and back end. But yeah, I would stick with 30 pounds. But as we've said, we have flexibility. If you are an 80 pounder, you can put that in and we'll consider it as an option. And if you have huge container requirements, you can think about that as well. But I would say if you think you're viable and you're interested in the opportunity, please submit. But remember, I think it's a 3-page white paper. And I believe Morgan hit something a little bit earlier with sea satellites. I don't want to see 50 submissions on 50 different topics. Ideally, you would be providing a kind of a umbrella offering, which is what you could come with in one white paper. So if you've got a 800-pound cargo variant and a 4-pound cargo variant, you could probably put that under one and we could talk about all of them. And then I'll answer Michael Jones from Subsea Sail. I'm not worried about stealth right now. If you want to show off stealth, this is a good opportunity for it. My job is more or less just getting the assets into the AOR to evaluate. If you meet some of the minimum requirements to the left from the chat box, that's what I'm looking for.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to next hit Jake, and then I believe it is Rich, and then Hank, and then Brittany. So with that schedule in mind, for the UAVs, is the focus on VTOL UAS operating from smaller vessels, or would STOL solutions to larger vessels, such as LHAs, aircraft carriers, etc., also be considered? And that question is coming from Pika.
Yeah, what I would say to that is I'm fairly certain we do not have many authorizations for unmanned systems to launch from either big decks or small decks at this point. It's not unachievable, but right now I think most of the airborne assets would be flying probably on an unknown range in Hawaii. That doesn't mean that if your presentation is viable, we couldn't work something out, but I'll leave it at that. So if you have VTOL or STOL, it's viable, please submit. Thanks, Jake from Pika. And then I see Josh has got a good copy. And Hank, could you clarify, is the aim to deliver additive manufactured parts? So the aim is, in my mind, is to deliver additive. But as we've practiced in the past, what we use in our C2 dashboard is the ability to mesh together traditional classes of supplies with additive parts that we're working on so that you get a full supply system delivery. So the long and short is, no, we're not looking just to send additive. We would put in regular class 5 if that's what was required, coupled with a class 9 repair part. But from an advanced manufacturing perspective, it's just a part at the end of the day. So no, it's not just additive.
Thank you, Chris. Then Rich had a question.
All right, good afternoon. Rich Brazel. I'm with Terradynamics Inc. We make a VTOL UAS. We've previously been out on RIMPAC flying from a DDG. But what is what do you define as attritable? And what about attritability, I guess, is the goal here?
Well, yeah, that depends on the depth of your pocketbook. And in my pocketbook, I don't make decisions on what attritable would be, but it's something that is easily replaceable, not bespoke. I don't need MQ9 Reapers. I'm looking for things that if I launched from an LHA and it was carrying a critical part for a warfighter on the first island chain, you could afford to lose 3 of them to get 1 in, kind of thing. So I don't have a definition of that outside of a research perspective, but I would just say I think it sticks with the standard definition of what most of the Department of War is saying. We're not looking for bespoke, very expensive, long supply chains to maintain and FSRs to keep them up and running. We want something that is arguably could be built forward, but it doesn't have to be, but it can't be insanely expensive.
Is the intent to have it manufactured or repaired at the Advanced Manufacturing Repair Facility, Ford? Is that a goal?
That does not need to be part of your write-up. I do not need to manufacture or repair it. Hence, it's attritable.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And just to add a little bit of color onto what Chris was saying, it's also got to be something where the manufacturability is there, because if you're trying to deliver 5 different copies of a additively manufactured piece to that warfighter in the first island chain, and you put it on a system, 3 of those systems get shot down, and now you can't get another one in theater for another 6 months, then that kind of defeats the purpose of being able to send those 3D printed parts over quickly. So it's a system that can be sent over. We can lose some, and it won't harm the overall advanced manufacturing network excessively.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's very helpful. Appreciate it.
Okay, and next up, a question from Brittany.
Hello, Dr. Brittany Duncan from University of Nebraska-Lincoln and Drone Amplified. I was curious about whether autonomous launch and land is part of this. So for the unmanned aerial vehicles, you want launch and recovery from vessel and land. Would that be autonomous, and is that in scope to start thinking about how these might launch off of the surface vehicles or the ground vehicles or things like that?
I would say it is in scope, but as I indicated, I do not have authority right now for any launch and recovery from any naval platforms for this exercise. Depending on how we down select, I can then seek out that authority. So if your technology is selected and viable because of its ability to do such things, we may be able to pull that off. Most of our range time right now is going to be focused from an airfield above the land. I do not have a lot of aerial capability over water, but I do have the ability, if your technology is selected, to find a way to integrate it, but it probably wouldn't be under what you would define as the true RIMPAC flag. I would go to some of my warfare center buddies on the island and I'd find some range time. So we could find ways of working it out, but we're not wed to launch and recovery from ships. It could be simulated as well. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but I would say submit and let's see.
Sounds great. Thanks very much.
Okay, and I believe Hank's question was answered by Chris. Then a question from Mike Elbert from Mantech on data extraction to a government network. Will interim authority to test be generic for all to use, or do the solution providers TRL6 products need to obtain an IATT on its own?
I will have to do some research on that. I do not think we're going to need any IATTs associated. But yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Morgan, do you have a better answer?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it's going on the NPS network, then you will not need that paperwork. If the sponsor, for some reason, wants to collect more data onto their own networks, then that might come up. But from our past experiences doing it on the NPS network, there is not that requirement to my knowledge.
Agreed. I think that's a fair answer, Morgan. Thank you. Mike seems like he's happy. We got a thumbs up either from him or somebody. So I'm going to assume it's from him and move on.
Yeah. The advantages of using the .edu domain versus using the .mil domain. Okay, I think there's a follow-up question from Miles from Sealand Air, and then after that, I believe it is Ivan from Splash, and then Isaac from Bulwark. So the question is, could you comment a little bit more on the distances for delivery, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping probably airspace is our biggest problem out there, obviously. And those of you who are in the unmanned aerial systems delivery or in that swim lane know that that's a problem almost everywhere. We're planning on being able to work with the Coast Guard to get the sea space where we might be able to physically do a ship to shore, shore to ship, ship to ship delivery opportunity. So we're looking at pretty long haul distances if feasible. If we have to do representative runs, we can do that. So if you tell me you can carry 30 pounds for 25 miles and you're selected, we will adjust we do a lot of what are they called now? Measle injects, where we design the scenario around the capability we select. So if you're selected and only do 25 miles, we will work to find something with that is in an ops box within 25 miles, or we'll have to do it as a simulation. But I would say if your technology, just list your range and your payload and your capability, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chris. And then I believe Ivan had another question.
Yep. So, Christopher, you briefly mentioned C2 and just integration into the general common operating picture. Would we be expected to do that? Because as part of some of the other exercises, we are doing that. Basically, should we allocate resources towards a C2 integration?
I wouldn't allocate too much towards it. I mean, what would happen is if selected, we would start having the discussion on what is the best way to pull the data we need from you. It could be as basic as all I need to know is where you're going to launch from, and how much weight can you carry. It could go beyond that to say, hey, I need your telemetry data so that we can track it. Right now, I would say focus on your payload capacity and volume, as well as your distances and your attritability. But you could be asked during the workup to the planning, hey, we'd like to pull a little bit more data from you, and we would work with you to facilitate that. Over.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Rich, I'm going to assume that your hand is still up from your previous question, so I'm going to lower it. But if I'm incorrect, then just raise it again, and I'll get to you if you have additional questions. Moving over to Isaac from Bulwark Dynamics. What is the ideal payload capacity for the USV? Is the desired payload closer to 30 pounds or 1,000 pounds? For example, is there a maximum USV size for this focus?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this can be what you'd like it to be. If you have 1,000-pound payload capacity that you are willing to integrate, and also a 30-pounder, you're welcome to write up that capability so that we can integrate it as best we can for you. The minimums are the minimums. I do not have a maximum. And I would tell you that, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Minimums are the minimums, and I don't have a maximum is the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, except a little bit of a comment on there. Yeah, if your 1,000-pound solution is something that fits the overall concept where we could send multiple of them out and lose a few of them and not be impacted in the overall advanced manufacturing network when delivering parts in a contested environment, then that's fantastic. But if that 1,000-pound capacity is something that's bespoke and not as manufacturable, then it might be more appropriate for a different kind of effort. Okay,
right, I could take Josh's. The bottom line is I do talk to Indo-PACOM, MAR4PAC, and PAC Fleet regularly. They will be observers. They will receive the final exercise briefs. They will probably be attending the DV days. They probably will not be helping with the evaluation per se, but as we build the Manning document for a 30-day exercise, or just a 23-day exercise, I think it was what it turns out to be, not counting Valiant Shield. So then you will see folks from warfare centers, folks from MAR4PAC may participate. 3MEF will certainly. We're asking each of the MEFs to participate. So evaluation as a loose term, yes, there could be evaluators from all of the listed organizations as well as others. I'm speaking to Indo-PACOM J8 regularly. Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Then one other question in the chat from Rob from Havoc. Can you clarify on the shore-based infrastructure? Will the government provide launch facilities, overnight storage, charging, etc.?
Yeah, we'll help facilitate as much as we can. I cannot promise we can cover everything, but that would be part of the dialogue. But more than likely, I could see it going off of out of K-Bay, and you'd be theoretically able to charge with the Marines out in 29 or out in K-Bay. They would then put it inside their gate, and it would be locked up for storage. But it would be very there'll be some cost savings, but we can't promise you we can cover everything. Over.
Okay, thank you very much. I do not see any other questions in the chat. If anybody has, oh, there we go. Mike has an additional question for water space management for UUV use. Seem to recall past exercises had an area where that was provided to support testing, verification, etc. Will those coordinates be provided, or an estimated square area for the water space management?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I'll just say Chris is in active dialogue right now about securing the water space aspect of things. So there's still a little bit of uncertainty about what it's actually going to look like, but he's pushing on those buttons. Any other questions before we move on to talking about the timeline? Okay. Good to hear the sweet sound of silence. So the template for the 3-page white paper, for those of you who received a targeted invitation, it was attached onto there. It is also on the website at www.fleetwerx.org. And I will pop that link in the chat for the specific opportunity. I see we have one alibi on a question, so I will pause my conversation about the logistics. Oh, and Chris has already answered it, so I will resume my conversation then. So if you need a link to the template white paper, as well as a link to submit the white paper, those are found on our website at the link that I posted in the chat. It's pretty short and sweet. It should not be something that is overly burdensome for you to submit. So just make it easy for the government team to read and capture that key information on there. As I mentioned, the government team are going to be the ones that are reviewing it. I will not be grading and selecting white papers. That is a government function. We're just the neutral facilitator. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have during the process, but I will not be doing the grading. I see Chris has his hand raised. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a point to Brett from Crier. I mean, what I can tell you is we are not, as a research institution, looking at procurement pipelines and acquisition pipelines. We can help with other things tied to CRADAs and more exercise engagements, which could lead to those opportunities for you. So I didn't want to come off as being completely dismissive of the importance of it. I know exactly what you're getting at. If you've got great tech, we want to get it into the acquisition pipeline. We are not an acquisition authority, but we can help facilitate the movement of that needle for you as over time, given performance and viability. Over.
Yes, and we make an effort to look at potential transition opportunities as part of all of these projects. A lot of that comes from delivering our reports up to the sponsors for this exercise, as well as any other interested folks with the acquisition authority to be able to make that transition pathway happen. So we are true and factual advocates for your capability. If you have something that performs well, we are going to be trying to push as many different pathways for you as possible, using the connections for it. But as Chris mentioned, NPS is not a acquisition authority base, so they're not going to have a pre-planned transition for it. It's going to be relying on advocating for your technology in front of the other stakeholders who are helping to fund and execute and review for this project. Okay, back to discussion of timeline and future steps. So I covered the logistics of where the template is located, where to submit. As I mentioned, Ivan, we can facilitate if you need to edit something that you've already submitted before the deadline. There should be a button on submittable where you can request to check that out, make edits. I just go in there, click approve, and then it comes right back to you to edit and then resubmit. And if you have any questions on that or anything else, info@fleetwerx.org, just send us an email and either myself or the PM for this project will get back to you on it. If you are interested in collaborating with one of the other companies that was on this objective strategic session, you can submit a joint proposal for it. You will both get the full 3 pages. So if 2 people are collaborating, then that would be 6 pages in total. If you would like to partner with another organization that did not attend today, you just need a teaming agreement request form so that we get the government to sign off on that. It's pretty easy. It's a short Excel document. Just send an email to info@fleetwerx.org if you need a copy of that to fill out. And to reiterate, we are a neutral facilitator, so we are not going to review your submissions. We are just helping you guys be able to get it in front of the government for them to review and down select on there. Looking at the timeline, hitting those important dates one more time, the 13th of February at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 1700, for the military-minded of you, that is when the submission window for the white papers closes. So please remember to get them in prior to that time. Then you should have a selection or non-selection announcement in your inbox by the 25th of February, along with some discussion of next steps and planning to get the systems out to Hawaii for RIMPAC. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time to attend this session and for your very good questions that you've asked throughout. As I've said before, if you have any questions, please feel free to send an email to info@fleetwerx.org. I just put that email link in the chat there. And we are happy to help and answer any of those questions that you may have. Chris, any other questions, comments, notes that you want to put out before we end for today?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you all for participating. Hopefully I've gotten you the answers to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. And please send us an email if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.